Welcome to my video channel. I am the commander. My name is Francis. I studied to be a Catholic priest for 6.5 years, and in that time I did a graphic novel called Eve. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't do it back then when I was studying to be a priest. All I did when I was studying to be a priest was study to be a priest. But in that time, I traveled the world. I was studying in North America, South America, United States, that is, and down in Mexico and Chile. I also studied in Rome. And in Rome, it is the place where all kinds of people come to debate religion because, of course, St. Peter's and the Vatican is there. And while I was in Rome, I used to debate with all kinds of people from what would be Protestant theologians, Muslims, and other Catholics, of course, and atheists. I met more than a few atheists who wanted to discuss what the deal was. And one of the things I found about atheism that I'm going to address in this blog is that it offers you nothing.
Target acquired. Fireman ready. Roger that. Firing. Target destroyed.
I know, it's a little dramatic.
I'd say it was more premature than anything else, as all you've done is made some vague assertion and insinuated that this is somehow a crippling blow to non-believers. Thing is, your channel reeks of this overconfidence, starting with the description found under your video. And comments are disabled because there's too many atheists and Protestants whose only claim to intellectual fame is anger and memes. So until you're ready to do battle with the commander, you're not ready to comment. Video 5 will have comments enabled for your information. First of all, who made you the judge of intellectual capacity? I mean, the very fact that you refer to it as intellectual fame tells me you don't have the first clue when it comes to seeking actual conversation. In actual discussion, it's not about the prestige one may gain from their work. It's about the arguments one presents. Also, whilst I fully support your right to disable comments, do note that it doesn't have any effect on my capacity to make a review on the points you present, as I'm doing here. Secondly, for one who's flinging shit about atheists and Protestants supposedly being restricted to anger and memes, you're coming off as a bloated hypocrite. Let's discuss your little display here on screen. You have what seems to be a badly photoshopped M1A2 with St. Peter's Basilica stuck on top, surrounded by dying fallen angels, and you just pretended to take a shot at atheism. That to me seems pretty angry. As for memes, you're utilising the popularity of graphic novels and old school game fonts to try and buy yourself credit with your online audience. Then there's the fact that you're utilising a popular saying brought new life online with the well-known atheist rendition, the internet, where religions come to die. You've taken this, or the original saying, and turned it into your self-gratifying Catholic commander, where doubt and atheism go to die. How is that not a meme? Don't get me wrong, you're free to do all of this and it doesn't necessarily lower the quality of your work. But if you're going to pretend that you've disabled comments because atheists go around doing these things which you assert are bad, then maybe consider the position that puts you in when you're seen doing the very same things yourself.
But I kind of like the idea of addressing the option for atheism. You know, if you have an option, if you go into a restaurant and there's a menu, and you look at the menu and you say, oh, everything looks so good. You know, here's religion, here's philosophy, here's, theology. Oh, look, there's atheism. Oh, I haven't tried that, so I'm going to give it a shot. And then they bring it to you and it's an empty plate. And you're wondering why it's even on the menu, because atheism ultimately is nothing. There's nothing there. After all the talk, after all the promises that reason will do whatever you want it to do, which, by the way, is not exactly true, but it's not exactly false, except that reason belongs to everybody. It's not bringing anything to the table. So when atheism says we offer you something new, you don't offer anything. And that is why I find atheism to be a complete waste of time. It is, in fact, something that comes there that's empty, and they promised you everything, and there's nothing there. Okay? Ultimately, there's nothing there. Atheism offers you nothing.
Who promised you everything? It certainly wasn't the atheist who knows full well that being an atheist in itself offers nothing beyond what a person initially had. Therefore, this appears to be a figment of your imagination that you have presented as the basis for, quote, atheism, so you can attack that rather than partake in a nuanced discussion with someone who actually understands the label. But whilst you could be said to be correct in that being an atheist offers you nothing new, what it does offer is the return of something taken from you, i.e. your philosophical integrity. This isn't gained through atheism as much as it is regained from theism when you leave, or retained if you never joined to begin with, in the sense that when you first abandon reason to pursue a belief in that not proven to exist, you have lost your philosophical integrity. When you leave, you regain that. Being an atheist on its own can only give back what was taken by theism by returning you to the default position. And with all theistic beliefs, the universal quality it returns is said integrity when dealing with the question of God's unproven existence. There may be other places the person falls, but in rejecting the unfounded assertions of God, they are spared that specific loss of integrity. However, when it comes to certain religions such as Christianity and its many schisms, being an atheist can also return other things such as innate value and a sense of self-respect, which are typically taken from you at an early age where you are taught that you are a vile, sinful creature from birth. The idea of original sin, I believe you call it. The real analogy is that you go to a restaurant and see that they have arsenic, mercury, and lead listed as your three choices on the menu, each of which will at least impair your cognitive faculties, if not kill you. Atheism is getting up and walking out to preserve those basic human principles people naturally develop, and that's all it needs to be. But to expand on these basic human principles, to guide us as an atheist in how we should view them and act upon them, we would require either a non-theistic religion or a secular philosophy. As an atheist, I've personally selected to follow a humanistic philosophy which places human well-being and education at the forefront of my life's choices. Humanism offers me what atheism allows for, a worldview which is formed by both reason and empathetic faculties. You see, reasoning is killed by any form of theism, whilst an advanced sense of empathy is despised by your religion in particular, which upholds a God in favour of genocide, mass rape and slavery. So yeah, atheism doesn't give me anything new, but it also doesn't steal from me like your religion does from you.
And what you have now, you already have. So you don't need atheism to actually arrive to any material conclusions that you can reach by the scientific method. Okay?
No, primarily because you have things backwards. You seem to be working off the basis that a belief in God is a position one must take in order to investigate a claim, rather than a claim to be investigated itself. Nobody said you need an absence of theistic belief to do science, but if you allow science and philosophy to dictate what you believe in all walks of life, then it is the only honest position at the current. There is a complete absence of scientific evidence for God, and a belief in God is philosophically hollow as a conclusion because it lacks reason and logic behind it.
So atheism is an absolute vacuum of worthlessness, and because of that, it's really a waste of time. If you want to pursue intellectual things, like science, it doesn't matter what you think of God. Science is the ability to know stuff that already exists. And so that's why you conduct scientific experiments to test things and find things out and discover how things work. But the things are already there. They're not there for you to create because you can't create from nothing. Even though science would love to believe you can. Actually, the more philosophical scientists in the world love to say that, I think it's abiogenesis or something. I forget what it's called now, but, it's like something from nothing. Okay, fine. If you want to believe that, you can. That's more of an act of faith, I think, than it is to believe that there's some kind of super being that created everything.
This will be over soon.
Sorry there. Don't know what came over me. Oh sure, it's the atheist that is woefully unprepared to do battle with the mighty intellect of the Catholic commander, whilst you don't even know what abiogenesis is. In fact, you're so out of whack with the scientific community that you seem to have confused it with both spontaneous generation and cosmology. Abiogenesis does not touch the formation of matter and energy. It's a field of biology, not quantum physics. All abiogenesis describes is the formation of organic life from inorganic molecules, a process we can already partially observe up to the level of protocell. That is an organism that meets all the necessary requirements to be classed as primitive life. Yes, we're building our way up to a better understanding each year, but we've only had half a century to find out and replicate in controlled and observed conditions what nature has had billions of years and infinite retries to achieve. As for the formation of matter and energy itself, due to the nature of Occam's razor, a naturalistic formation will always be superior as a position until evidence of a supernatural creator has been supplied. You see, the additive of a supernatural entity which is self-forming resolves nothing that a universe which is self-forming resolves. All it actually does is move things back one step, adding further unfounded assertions about the existence and nature of said being, making it more assumption-burdened and therefore philosophically weaker by Occam's razor. Therefore, for a creation model of the universe to even be on par with a self-forming universe on a philosophical level, you would need to prove a God actually exists, and even then it would be a tie that only science would be able to resolve. But we aren't even there. We're currently stuck with a self-forming universe being the philosophically stronger position all round. As for science, you'll have to acknowledge that all current models being investigated as having any remote possibility of being true are naturalistic. A pretty big nail on what you're trying to suggest here. Yeah, science has limitations as you're flashing on screen, but that's why science is open for review at any point. So unless you have evidence to bring to said review for God, all you are in fact doing here is talking utter rubbish.
But they want to believe that nothing can create something. And from that, you get all these interesting new species. All right, whatever. Okay. But I find that atheism ultimately, because it ends up in death and destruction and complete annihilation of your being, it's really a boring and I would say retrograde understanding of the human condition, because it doesn't allow for hope in an afterlife where the fruits of your labor, if you've necessarily been poor or things have been hard for you, and the promise of religion is that you will find your reward in heaven if you don't find it on earth.
Do you know what's better than hope? Actual actions. Yeah, we all need hope to some degree, and that's not something atheists lack. But we hope for things that have some actual basis. We hope on the kindness of our fellow humans to help us when we're stuck, for example. But that only works if we're willing to pitch in when the chips are down for other people. Heaven, meanwhile, is an empty promise and has no value. It allows the greedy to sap time and resources from people who could be using said time and resources to improve their lives or the lives of others. Just think about the greed of the Vatican, in particular surrounding Mother Teresa. The Vatican held up this vile cretin who tortured people to make them confess right before she allowed them to die, just so she could gain some heavenly brownie points. And in upholding that lie, countless good people who thought Mother Teresa was actually a kind woman who helped the sick donated their money and effort. Not just Catholics, but people from all walks of life were robbed by your church and their lies in modern day. Money taken from them and the people they wanted to help and hoarded away by the Vatican as people died of easily treatable diseases in squalid conditions under Teresa's orders. You talk of hope when all you truly offer is pain.
Which leads to the next little target here, which is doubt.
Target acquired. Fire when ready. Firing. Target destroyed.
What doubt does is it stops you from investigating new sources of information that you never considered or didn't plan on ever finding, so that when they do pop up, you don't look at them seriously because you've already made a decision. And if this new information leads you to doubt your decision or doubt the value of the new information, then you will not take the time to learn it, which is the problem with doubt.
Is that all?
Sorry, couldn't resist the background change. If one is doubting their position, then they are very likely to take one of two actions. They are either likely to A, go in search of evidence to resolve their doubt, or B, resort to fallacious arguments to try and preserve their beliefs, such as what you are doing here. Many ex-Christian atheists drop their religion after a deep study of the Bible and comparing it to what science, philosophy, and history can show. I get that no religion celebrates doubt, but there are sections of the secular community which do, including humanism. Doubt makes us review our position constantly and is what offers us basis to grow. Now, whilst it may be hard sometimes to open up initially, a factor impacted on the topic and delivery involved, ultimately as a humanist, I push for what religions fear. I know I could be wrong. I acknowledge human fallibility. Therefore, it's up to me and everyone else to remain up to date on the science and ethics of a topic. You view doubt as a boogeyman to be targeted. I view it as an opportunity to be celebrated.
And doubt is, of course, the enemy of true faith. Faith, according to the definition, is the belief in things that are not there and trust that they're going to be there at some point. Okay, that's the New American bastardized version. But I'm going to show you the real version here in a second. Okay, one thing you notice about the definition of faith is that it is a logical construct because it is contingent. That is, it is dependent on something happening or occurring before it. Okay, so faith is the assurance of things hoped for. All right, so faith means you put your trust into something that you know has already existed, or you've seen it before, or somebody told you that it's there, right? And then the second aspect of that becomes a conviction. That is, you believe so strongly, you now base your life's decisions upon it, right? Whatever you do next after making an act of faith proves that your conviction is now based on whatever your faith is leaning into. Okay? So therefore, it's a logical process. That means it's scientific in its approach to understanding whatever it is you're leaning towards. Because the scientific method also bases observations on things that are going on, forms a hypothesis about things it wants to occur, and then proceeds to act on the conviction that it can make those happen. When things go sideways in science, you go back to your hypotheses and you say, well, you know what, based on the observed details or facts, I didn't get what I wanted out of my hypotheses, so I'm going to change my hypotheses. However, if things go right, it becomes your newest form of fact. Okay? So, I'm saying to you that faith is understandable. It's not some crazy notion that we base it upon, the old man in the sky crapola. It has nothing to do with that. It's not wishful thinking. You've seen things, you've heard things, and so you kind of want to believe in it. So you put your faith or trust in something unseen, and then you become so convinced of it, you act upon those convictions.
All of this is a complete lie, of course. Faith in the religious sense is simply an assertion held to be true without adequate basis, regardless of how much Francis Tester wants to play a game of semantic hot potato. As Oxford defines it in a religious context, faith is a strong belief in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual conviction rather than proof. Now, as with many words, there are other meanings to the word out there when one changes the context, such as complete trust or confidence in something or someone, where faith is synonymous with evidence-based trust. But whilst this clearly refers to a different usage of the word, it has sadly allowed dishonest individuals a place to try and blur the lines, changing the word between usage, an equivocation fallacy. You see, when they actually talk about faith in their religion, they are not talking about something demonstrable. But when the non-believer questions that, they utilize an equivocation fallacy to change their usage of faith to try and protect their religion on semantic grounds to avoid a request for actual evidence. Science, meanwhile, is based on evidence-based trust. We've constructed a system which is constantly being reviewed, catching out bad science, and as a product of this, gives us results in technological advancements. Meanwhile, religion merely attacks its critics and asserts authority. As Tim Mitchell summarized, science adjusts its views based on what's observed. Faith is the denial of observation so that belief can be preserved.
Okay, now there are dangers to that, just like there are dangers in science. Not that we're going to do a compare and contrast, because I don't have time for that, and frankly, it's a waste of time. Faith is utterly spiritual in its elements. Okay? That's the point of faith. Faith is a belief in somebody who is not visible. And that's the crux of faith. And therefore, your convictions based on this invisible person or thing now becomes the butt of jokes for scientists who say you can't even prove it. But they can't prove it either. And when they do prove their hypotheses could be completely wrong, if they are partisan, or worse, if they're getting paid to come up with the bad conclusions by powerful entities which control science and finance evil scientists to make stupid things happen and then write papers about it. And if you don't believe me, just follow the money. Just like a bad case of faith turning into evil conviction, which now results in pain being inflicted upon unwilling participants in your so-called religion. Okay? So that's the problems with faith, and that's also the problems in science. And conclusion, that's the problem with the human condition. It expands, whether you're atheist, expands over religiosity, it expands into our positions as mortals on the face of the earth. So, getting back to faith now. Who do you put your faith in? Since I'm Catholic and I have studied multiple things, we're going to look at the hero of the Catholic faith, also the founder of Christianity, and that is Jesus Christ.
No, that's just intellectual laziness on your part, utilized as a complete cop-out. Scientists can be corruptible, their numbers can be wrong, but it was the science that found them out. Faith, meanwhile, is a complete rejection of any evidence and therefore cannot be tackled as such. Faith has no value. It offers humanity nothing except excuse when forced to face their own incredulity. You sit there and proclaim we cannot do better when science proves you wrong every single time it allows a child to walk where your proposed God failed. Stop playing the false equivalency. Science produces results. Faith hampers them. But the question I now have for you is this. Can your proposed God impact the natural world? If yes, then he is measurable by science, and you have no excuse for the universal lack of said scientific evidence. If no, then he can have no impact on our lives, not to mention you could never have come to know about their existence to begin with, thus refuting your God once and for all, because either way, you lose.
Warning, ion cannon activated.
Oh, come on. We all knew I was way too much of a nerd to pass up an opportunity like that. I'll see you guys around. Take care now. There are a few things which I'd just like to add here at the end of this video. The first is a massive thank you to everyone who has ever donated to me via Patreon. Your fantastic support has given me the ability to keep this channel going, and I hope to continue producing content in the years to come. Secondly, I would like to thank anyone who has ever interacted with this channel. Your shares, likes and dislikes, as well as your comments of both approval and disapproval, have ensured constant feedback, allowing me to improve my work. Last of all, I would like to express my desire that you treat any of the people displayed throughout the video with respect. Whilst it is true that ideas do not demand respect, and there are many in fact which deserve reprehension, we must be careful on how we tackle said ideas in ensuring we are not simply targeting the person. In short, be the compassionate side of reason. So take care, and I'll see you next time.